Good morning, everyone, and welcome to CANTO Conversations. My name is Teresa Wankin, and I'm your moderator this morning as we discuss revenue growth with data science services with Danielle Benacourt from Conviva. Conviva is a global leading software development company, part of the Mahindra Group, with customer centricity, innovation, and ethical corporate governance at its core. Conviva's solution have been deployed in over 95 countries to over 130 telecommunication service providers and financial institutions. I'm happy to add that Conviva is also a newly minted member of CANTO. Danielle Benacourt is the account manager for Conviva in Latin America, with over 15 years of experience introducing data innovative technologies to telecom, finance, health, and retail companies in the region. He is an electronics and telecommunication engineer with a master's degree in data analytics. Danielle, welcome to CANTO Conversations. We're very happy and excited to have you join us this morning to talk about revenue growth with data science services.
Thank you, and thank you for having us. We are very pleased to join the CANTO community today to talk about our this trend solution. Thank you again for having us. We are pleased to share with the CANTO community about the data science services and how to use them for revenue growth for the telecom service providers or telcos, like we say. First, I would like to go into why data science, and then we look how to use it for, or how are we using it to increase revenues, okay, for different telcos in the world. So first of all, let us remember when we heard about, for the first time, about data science, right? It's in a basic concept, it's a collection of scientific methods, processes and tools to extract knowledge and, more important, insights from data, right? And we heard about this because there were huge global success cases with huge rewards. Remember, we have first the Google search that defeated any web search engine back then, like 20 years ago. Then we have, for example, Google Maps that they can predict when we going to arrive to any place in the world. So I was discussing some examples of the success cases in data science. We heard about Google, we heard about the maps or Waze. Then, of course, we heard about Amazon, that with the recommendation engine, they can increase their revenues up to 30% just by doing recommendations. And then we heard about Netflix using the same to make suggestions about movies based on our personal tastes, whether we like romantic movies or thriller movies, and they adapt the content. So it's more appealing to us, right? So all these are examples maybe we have heard before about data science. And of course, the companies heard of this as well. And most of the companies were interested in exploring that, of course, and telcos were not the exception. But when they began to talk or explore about data science, they faced a few challenges, right? Specifically about talking about telcos. The first challenge was the lack of data scientists with experience in telecommunications, right? They could find many people with some experience in finance or health or technology companies, but more like web oriented, but not necessarily telecommunications. So that they faced like either hire very expensive people or maybe train their own staff, and that usually takes some time. Okay. Then they face the challenges of developing data science products in the company. And this is a graph to our right from Forbes that when they explain that more than 60% of the process is cleaning and organizing data. So the telcos were not the exception here. They have many data sources, So which ones should we use for develop any data science models, right? To give some value insights. And then when you look into each of the data sources, you find quality issues, right? Missing records, information maybe is not complete. So those can turn a data source maybe not usable for data science purposes, okay? Another challenge is that there are many technologies around, and every year we have new technologies coming in. So which technology should we use for our models? Are we using the right technology or not? Those are questions like there are no clear answers at least at the beginning of this process of with data science. There are also many tools, some specific for artificial intelligence, but usually those tools are generic or focus on finance, health, other verticals, not necessarily, not exactly telecommunications. And then finally, when they were looking for service providers, there were very few. There were very few service providers, and usually affordable only for big telecommunication, for big telecommunication companies, right? So those were some of the challenges that the telcos were facing. But at the bottom line is that they sooner or later all realize that there is no magic models like the examples we showed before, well, Google or Amazon. There is no magic model. Instead, any company must build many models, and each model contributes a little over a long time to achieve a significant result, right? We are going to talk a little bit more about the model development in the next slide. But just to, this is a key important issue. Probably many telcos are already into this stage, and that is that they need to build several models in order to make this valuable for the company. And this has been a hard experience, like because for the data science teams in the telcos, every failure or lack of results is like a question to the whole data science effort, right? And even they are good data scientists. It's just that the culture of the companies maybe is not adapted, and some companies do not understand that that nature of the data science process. That you need to build a lot, you need to try a lot to achieve results. Um, as I was saying, this is an example. This is the data science framework that we use in our consultancy services to develop any model, and probably is very similar to the model used by any data science company in the world. But instead of going through all the process, it's just to show that it's a long process to develop any model. It begins, like we said, initially collecting the data, it identifying the best sources, then selecting the best model, then trying that model, getting results, and based on those results, maybe go back and try a different model, or improve that model, improve the accuracy of that model to provide results at the end for the company. So, and this is the process for every single model. So you plan to have like 10 or 20 models in your company, then you have to do this process one by one. So at the end, it's a trial and error process. It's a long time effort, and there is some uncertainty about the when are we going to get results, and whether those results are going to be valuable or not. Okay, so this is the challenge we were faced with many customers. So we were looking at a balance, how to balance this need of following a long but technical rigorous process, and how to achieve results soon enough for any company, right? How to balance those needs. Then we came across with a concept that's the concept we want to introduce today to you, and that is the data science as a service. Um, the idea basically is outsourcing the machine learning models running on the telcos data to generate insights. Here, which means is that the models are already built, and we put those models into to operate within the telco, and that in that basic concept of data science as a service, we adapted to overcome the fears and maybe the limitations the telcos were having, right? So this is the kind of adaptation we did for for the concept, uh, for each feature. First of all is the models. Like we said, any company will needs any telco needs to build several models to make the process to ensure that they will achieve results. And we have done so, working with several telcos. By now, we have built already over 70 models, and those models are already field tested, not only field tested, but also operating in several telcos, right? And those models could be about segmentation, right? How to get better segments from the company subscriber base, how to reduce churn, how to increase the upselling or the cross-selling. We will look into those models later, but this is just to show you the idea that the basic concept here is to rent some models to the companies, and that gain that time of, instead of wasting or using so much time to build the models, they can rent those models already built through this service, data science as a service. By doing so, the deployment is a lot faster, at least twice faster. And on top of that, there is no need to replace existing tools or models that they have. This is a value enhancer solution. Um, how do we do it? First of all, we already identified the best data sources. As you can imagine, any telcos have some common patterns about what are the data sources and the most suitable to build models. We also have already proved what are the best model algorithms to work with, and we take care of the models update. And of course, if we need to update the technology, we can do that, right? So by doing this, the company or the telco doesn't need to worry about um, selecting the models. We do that for them, and we update the models, and the only thing they need to do is provide the data to us. But here, as many telcos, of course, and many companies have security concerns, of course. In our case, we ensure that in the deployment, the data doesn't leave the telco, doesn't leave the company. The models are deployed in its own premises, if necessary. And one advantage of data science as a service is that the execution is usually offline, which means we don't need to be connected or sending data outside. It can be done within the telco, right? So by doing so, we tackle probably the most serious fear of the company, which is to hand the data to somebody else. This, in this case, doesn't happen. We work together with the data science team in the telco, um, to ensure that we don't have access to the data and take out that data outside. It's just we connect the data sources with them, but we don't have access to that data. Okay. We have access to the results, of course, and that we share. Uh, uh, we used to create actions to improve the revenue, as we are going to look in the next slides. Okay. About another advantage of this concept is the affordability, of course, because the telco pays per model. The models are already built, so it's a lot cheaper than trying to build their own models. And of course, as we said, it's faster. And it can be done on a monthly basis. So, for example, they can activate these models for the summer campaign, right? Or for a proof of concept, And if these models have better performance than the models that they have, if they already have some models, then they can compare and select which model is the best. And if our models have better performance, then they can think about using these models for their marketing campaigns, right? And finally, and probably the most important advantage is that the insights we can get with these models benefit that from the fact that these models are built from the point of view of multiple telcos. There is no way that the one telco, as you can imagine, is looking at the view of its own data, right? It cannot look at the data of other telcos in other parts of the world, or competitors or anything like that. But in our case, our models have already been trained with information from different telcos. So therefore, they can provide more insights than at a model developed by the telco itself. So it will never be the same, the information that we can get from these models that are share the point of view of multiple telcos. Okay. Um, this is how we deploy that concept into the telecommunication companies. And we focus in customer value management. So I was explaining here that the way we deploy this is, okay, where can we get most, the highest impact for the telecommunication companies? And thinking of that, we thought of focusing first in the customer value management. Of course, in any telecommunications company, there are different departments or field where you can apply data science. It could be in the network, could be operations, right? Could be customer support. But in our case, we found that by focusing our models in customer value management, we achieve the highest impact. Okay. Um, we focus then our efforts in models to provide better customer retention, uh, also how to increase ARPU, right? And how to improve the customer experience, right? In customer retention, we help customers by predicting the customers about to churn, and we have achieved accuracies of even more than 90% in that prediction. About how to increase revenue per user, we have predicting campaign success, and also we can predict or identify the next best offer based on the customer profile, and those models can achieve more than 80% accuracy, right? And regarding we're saying about personalized customer experience, the idea is to offer models that provide recommendations, helping to improve the customer experience in general. Um, how do we deploy that? As we said, sorry, go back here. As we said, we have already built the models first, like over 75 models, and we are building more, right? But those are models are developed by data science with experience specifically in the telco needs. Second, as we said, this is not intrusive. The idea is to be an enhancer to whatever efforts the customer is doing. Usually, any company has a data science roadmap, so we can align with that data science roadmap. And if they don't have it, we can also help them to create that roadmap. And that roadmap is basically a way to say to the company, look, this will take some time. We will, in a first phase, we will try to get results for these departments or these fields, for, like we say here, customer value management, for example. But then when are we going to tackle needs from other departments? That's basically a data science roadmap. The deployment, of course, is faster, as we said. Specifically, we are looking at deployments that takes 2 to 3 weeks when we deploy built models. Okay, if we have to develop new models, of course, that will take longer. But of course, having like more than 70 models already built, it's a lot faster to show results, right? We can also deploy it maybe some premise, or if the telco is working in the cloud right now, we can do that also, deploying in cloud. Usually these models are deployed with the standard tools, like any data scientist know, like Python or R, right? And we support, of course, multiple databases, right? Uh, on top of that, we have dashboards for reporting the model and KPIs performance. In that way, we can monitor and maybe switch if necessary. But as you can imagine, the more we deploy these models, the better performance they are having. And we have also the chance to co-develop new models, which usually take probably 6 weeks or something, because still we can develop faster than the telecom operator itself, because our data sciences are trained specifically for telco needs. Okay. So that's the way we have deployed these data science as a service solutions. This is an example of some of the models we have built. As we said, we have models for cross-selling, upselling, and as you can see here in this list, we are not going to go through each one of them, but just to show that, as we said before, maybe we can do models for specific segments, or one model could be split into several to handle different needs, right? For example, in retention, we have churn prediction models for prepaid, for postpaid, and within prepaid for different segments, and the same for postpaid, and so on, right? We have also models for acquisition, right? Potential buyers, maybe price points, price discounts. For segmentation is key for marketing efforts, of course, even to achieve micro segments within the telco subscriber base. We also have models for customer analytics record, which is a way to collect information about the users to create profiles so we can use them for segmentation. And universal control group, which is basically a way to compare how good or bad are doing certain campaigns, marketing campaigns. So by having a control group, we can say if those campaigns are successful or not, and make decisions sooner, maybe to keep that campaign going, or maybe change it to another campaign because it's not giving results. Those are examples of the models we have built. And the idea now is to show you some results about these deployments in other companies. First of all, to show you, we already have like, in this slide, we have like seven deployments of the data science as a service models. Mainly, Conviva is an Indian company, so of course, our deployments have been first in Asia and Africa. There are some common challenges in the telcos. As we said, we start to find patterns in the channels in the companies eventually, but usually the telcos are complaining of lower revenues, declining recharges, increased customers churning and maybe not sending the right offers to the right customers, right? Maybe they can do better on that. So those are like common problems we tackle with our models. And as likewise, the results deploying those models have been really good for the companies. Like some achieve more than 10% revenue increase, more than 35% increase in the offer uptake of those subscribers that we are sending campaigns, which means 35% more users are joining those campaigns. 25% increase in customer retention. As we explained before, a faster time to market, because these models, the next step on after applying these models is to run campaigns. Those campaigns can be executed twice faster, and the accuracy, of course, it remains high, over 90% for those deployments. Some of those deployments, like we said, we have in Indonesia, one tier one telecom provider achieve accuracies of 84%. Another provider in Kuwait achieve 90% accuracy in churn in prepaid, 93% in churn in postpaid, and 94% in recharges. Another one in Indonesia achieve 85%. So as you can see, the accuracies remain high. We have another deployment in UK. This is for next best offer, but again, accuracy is high. And finally, some deployments ongoing in Nigeria, in Kenya, in South Africa, and in Australia. Okay, all of those basically working with this set of models. And just to give you a brief look at a couple of those, this deployment in Jakarta, we deployed initially 11 models. Of course, the main issues were increased revenue and increase the adopters of the campaigns. And this operator in particular has like 60 million subscribers. These models, by the way, can be applied to small or medium size or large size telco companies. Okay. The key point here is how long or how many, how much data do we need to deploy that. Usually we work with historic information, 6 months old, okay? And of course, it's clear, essential, like we said, there's a culture issue here, and it's necessary to have a sponsor in the company. In our case, usually it's the CMO or the CIO who sponsor these projects in the company. We have used standard machine learning technologies like Python and MySQL for database. And in this deployment, like we said, we have increased the revenue by more than 7%, and adopters have increased by more than 35%. Okay. Model accuracy ranges from 80 to 94%. For reference here, we mentioned some of the technologies used. Popularity recommender, filter popularity recommender, random forest, XG, extreme gradient boost, or k-means clustering. Those are technologies specifically for data science. But the key point here is, like we said, we ensure that we are using the most suitable technology for the specific models that this company requires. Okay. And finally, some of the information or the insights we are collecting we are getting, for this company, right? For example, we can predict what numbers, so what is going to be the subscriber data usage in the next month, or maybe what could be the next reload values in the next month, or also what customers are most likely to be inactive in the next days, or also what are the best offers based on the performance of the campaigns and the prediction, the best top 3 offers per day, per week, or per month, and also reload propensity for maybe 7 days or 1 month or 3 months. Okay. And finally, some, like we said, some models to evaluate the performance of campaigns with control groups, basically. Okay, this is an example, like we said, in Indonesia. And sorry, I forgot to mention here, but the way we deploy it with every customer is we define some key business values. Here, in this case, retention, cross-selling, upselling, growth, etc. And we set up a plan to deploy models for each of these key business values, right? And every time we complete one, we move to the next one if the customer wants or not. That depends on the customer, of course. Same case for Kuwait. But in this case, we have deployed more than 40 models. This is a small size company compared to the example before, but this is 2.5 million prepaid subscribers. And we use also 6 months subscriber data. Okay, we use the same tools, Python, other tools, and MySQL. In this case, we have achieved 5.3% incremental revenue and churn reduction of more than 15%. Accuracies range from 80 to 96%. Same type of algorithm use and same type of models delivered. But in this case, of course, probably more focus in churn propensity and reload propensity, and of course, validate the performance of certain campaigns, marketing campaigns. Okay. So those are a couple of examples of how we deploying data science as a service. Finally, just to mention, like we said, this is a ongoing process. We have a roadmap, of course, of what are we doing there. As we said, initially we focus on customer value management, but our idea is to cover models in different key business processes in the telecom, right? Network management, carpet marketing, we are doing already some of those models, sales and channel management, finance, and provisioning and activation are potential models that we can provide under this concept, okay? And of course, eventually with the 5G coming and all that, we are working also on models for IoT analytics, and also very important these days, fraud analytics, right? And that's what we are doing right now about roadmap. So that's it. That's the concept we wanted to share today with you. The idea is that whoever is interested in knowing more about this concept of data science as a service and how are we deploying it, for sure you can contact us, and we can share more information with you about this. Okay.
Thank you so much, Daniel. This was really a very, very, very eye-opening presentation. So we have some questions that I will address from the chat. The first one up, Ravi Hiralal. Hi, Ravi, welcome. What practices do you utilize to ensure one single truth across all the data sources? So can you answer that for us?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What practices do you utilize to ensure one single truth across all the data sources? He wants to know about integrity of the data. What practices you all utilize?
We have you mean what practices? I understood,
yes.
Right? Yes, okay. We have a center of excellence in data science in our team. That team is based mostly in India. But of course, we have certified people in different technologies to ensure that they execute the best practices in general for that deployment, and for example for data integrity, like they asked in that question. This is, like we said, a key advantage of our offer or this deployment of data science as a service, because we use the same staff. Like, we have a very expert and trained staff that probably is really hard for any telco company to get how to say such an expert staff together, right? Especially if it's a small telco company. It's like we said, it's expensive to have a trained staff like that. But we have them, and of course, with this data science as a service model, they can use this staff during the deployment of the data science services, and therefore they apply all the best practices for data integration and for model selection and for model and all in general, all the framework we showed in the slides just before.
Okay, great. And how do you ensure that overfitting doesn't take place? overfitting?
Oh, okay. Again, there are some, as you can imagine, there are several best practices to avoid or to reduce overfitting in the deployment of the models. Our team ensures that they apply those practices, and this is in general another advantage of this model. The telco company is not sure that their data science team has all this knowledge, but by hiring these models or using these models that we have already built, they can be sure that we are applying the best practices to avoid precisely that. That's one example of overfitting, but of course, there could be other issues when deploying models. We ensure that we don't have such issues in our deployments through our expert data science team. Sorry, Teresa?
We have a question from a regulator. Hi, Bennett. Was any of your 70 plus models designed for use by regulators to verify data provided by telcos? So what Bennett is asking, if regulators can use data science to verify the information provided by telcos for them.
Okay, that's a great question. As we explained, this data science as a model, in the first phase, we have focused on customer value management models, right? But for sure, it can be also used to service the regulators, and it's a key point in development these days, like when talking about ethics, talking about maybe discrimination, all those issues can be tackled with models, and that's part of our roadmap for sure in development.
Okay, great. And following up with Bennett's question is, do any of your models analyze international data in and out of the network for traffic engineering studies, including IP, telephony, internet data?
That's something as I showed you in the roadmap, we are working in models for network, and for sure we are looking into that point in those models that we are developing.
Okay, and we have another question from Mark. If the telco is already performing an internal data service or data modeling solution, would that require a change in a business structure to be more modular?
No. As we said, the idea is to enhance whatever efforts the telco is doing at this moment. For example, if they have chart models, if they have maybe upselling or cross-selling models, the idea of our models is to be an enhancer to whatever efforts they are doing right now.
Okay, great. Hi, Samuel of Guyana, master's student in artificial intelligence and model management. Welcome. How is data ingested into the model? Is it done via data entry, or do you have database connections for data entry?
That's a good question. The key point here is more like political, because as you can imagine, the telco doesn't want their data to go outside. So based on that experience, we usually deployed inside our models inside. Of course, there is a contract where we deploy our models, and the PR is ours, right? The property, the intellectual property of those models is ours. But by having that clear, we can deploy those models within the telco. So in that way, they don't need to share that data with us. Just to plug in the data, the models will analyze the information and get the insights. But at the end, we as providers of the models do not get the data of the company.
Great. And hi, Orson. Orson is asking, he's stating for his about 90% accuracy with churn. Accuracy, is this based on trial data? looking backwards or in production once live and running? So you mentioned about the 90% accuracy rate with chain. Is this based on trial data?
No, it's in production data.
Okay, great. And from Colin, do you have recommended models or algorithms, or do you expect the carrier to suggest their models that you will implement? So do you suggest to the carriers what's the best practice, what's the best models, algorithms being used?
Exactly. The first question is what are the needs of the company? Maybe they have an issue with churn, maybe they have an issue with upselling, or maybe the issue is with any other issue they might have business oriented. That's the first question, to identify what are those needs of the company. Based on that, we suggest the models to execute. And of course, we suggest the technology that is used in those models. That's where we achieve a big, how to say, a big effort reduction for the telecom company, because they don't need to worry about that. And more important, they don't need to do that trial and error process, which takes a lot of time to finally identify what is the best model and the best technology to use. We have done already that. So with that means that when they deploy our models, the results will be faster. Will be they will obtain the result faster.
Okay, great. And we have one final question in the chat from Ashe. What is the smallest and largest size of data sets these models were deployed on? Can you give us an idea of the size of data sets used?
No, usually we have no issues about that, because the telcos in general collect a lot of information. They have like daily logs per calls and connections. So usually data sets, no matter how big or small is the company, the data sets are usually enough for our models to run. As we explained there, we are working with big customers, but also with the small telco companies, and we have had no issues about the size of the data set. So for us, it's okay.
Right. And Erwin Harris is asking, he liked your fraud analytics, which is fraud through the eyes of the machine. How do you use AI to identify suspicious connections via network analysis?
Yes, that's like we said, that's part of our roadmap. Also, we are working the fraud detection basically. But for sure, it's probably are different models than those used for customer value management, but it is part of the models that our team is developing for sure.
Great. So can we go a little into what suggestions do you have for companies now getting into data science? How can they go about this? Can you give us some ideas, some tips for companies now exploring data science?
Yes. The first thing is to identify what they want to achieve with data science. And usually this is to go through all the business needs and then select which are the most critical at the moment, because usually they will get several results there, several needs or pains. Then they need to do some prioritization, right? And once they have that, they can set up a roadmap, which is key for these deployments. As we said, the problem of deploying data science is that usually the companies pretend that this is a software machine that you plug in, and the next day you are having results. And this is not the case. This is a long process. It's more like a marathon rather than a sprint race. And that's why it's so important to build this roadmap. So in that way, the data science team or whoever is doing this effort makes the company aware that this is a long process and it will take time to have results.
Excellent. And what are some of the challenges company may face during the deployment of these data services?
Yes. the first one I would say is the culture, like we explained. When the company is not used to these long processes, um, they don't realize that this takes time. So probably the first thing to do when we face such customers is to explain how this works. Basically explain how data science deployment works. So in that way, they have realistic expectations, right? That's when we have initially when we have customers that didn't were not aware of this. Maybe it was more we had some struggles deploying, but by doing this process of training first, is now doing the deployments are smoother, of course. Okay, that's a key point in the experience deploying this solution. The second one is it is better to try several models and have small gains for each model rather than aiming to have like one model to solve many problems or be the solution, the sole solution for any request. Um, for example, I was saying in the churn, it is better to have, and this is based on our experience deploying this, it is better to have 5 or 6 models running. And then at the end of the month, we have a significant result rather than pretend to have the same results by just using one model. So this is key for the companies to understand.
Okay, and suggestions for company already using data science, but they're not seeing the results that they want. What ideas you have for taking them to the next level?
Well, what, of course, our suggestion will be to think about this concept that we introduced today, data science as a service, because we really think that is the key solution to balance that need, like to give results, but usually don't have enough time to wait for those results. So probably our call to action today is that, like, think about this concept, which is different to whatever is existing or is provided usually. Some companies say, okay, we can develop the models for you, but that takes time. Other companies say we can provide a tool for you and you can do the models, but again, that doesn't usually work like that. We have found that this concept is a like good balance among all those offers, and that is to rent the models, rent per model, and obtain results faster.
Okay, so we have some more questions from the chat. We have a few minutes and I want to address them. So in a country with around 600,000 people, is there enough data generated by companies, excluding the telcos, so that we can generalize it as big data, especially coming from the Caribbean, where several of the Caribbean islands are around 6,000, some even less than that?
Yes, it is possible. As we said, our experience is mostly in Asia and Africa. And once we deploy those, any service in those regions, we deploy in Latin America. But the thing is, in Asia and Africa, you find countries or telcos with millions of subscribers, but also others very small. And that's one of our key features, is to generate cost-effective solutions that can work with for small, medium, or big customers. So with that number of subscribers that you mentioned, it is still possible to build models.
Okay, very good question. Another question from Colin. How do you manage your services for multiple carriers that may exist in the same country and are also competing with each other? How do you address privacy concern and maybe not show favoritism?
Yeah, that's why it's so important to emphasize that we do not have access to the customer data. So in this example, you have two carriers in the same region, Maybe we are providing services for both of them, but each deployment is totally independent, 100% independent. And in one customer, our models are analyzing the data without knowing what is going on in the other model. Okay, so those are totally independent deployments, so we have no privacy issues there.
Okay, and this is a perfect question to end. Samuel Reed is asking, with the introduction of data science for business development, do you think it will build a need for more data engineers to pre-process business data? So do you see a new job skill emerging out here? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
For sure. As we said, the trend of data science is relatively recent, a few years ago. But we can see that every day more and more data engineers are needed to handle, because the key point here is that data will always grow. We will always have more data, right? Because data is being accumulated year after year. And eventually companies need to have more people to analyze all that information, right? So it's a matter of time to need more people to analyze data. So for sure, there is a need right now, and the need will keep increasing throughout in the next years, for sure.
Okay, excellent. Any closing comments for our listeners this morning, Daniel?
Thank you for this time to show this concept to you, and thank you to CANTO for letting us share with all the CANTO community about this. And for sure, you can contact us through CANTO if you want to know more about this concept and any other solutions we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the link is here for you to register for our next CANTO conversation. Thank you all so much for joining and staying with us and actively participating in the discussions this morning. On the 8th of July, we have another new member to introduce to the region. We will discuss optical network enhancement for accessible connectivity in the Caribbean as we face our new digital reality in a post-pandemic world. Our guests will be from PADTech, and we will start at 10 a.m. on July the 8th. The link to register is in the chat, so please register, and we'll send out our marketing information shortly. And last but not least, remember that conference registration is now open, where we will have more conversations like these, more in-depth conversations like these. So register early to secure your space for great content, premier branding, and superb networking opportunities. As we adapt to our new normal, let us remember that we are not yet out of the pandemic. Please continue to wear your mask, practice social distancing, and wash your hands. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us.